Welcome everyone to the September 22nd, 2021 Community Formation Commission meeting. We will call this meeting to order at 5:32 p.m. Sam, if you could do roll call.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Demo Adamalikan. Absent. Commissioner Alonso.
Present.
Commissioner Serafina Chavez.
Present.
Chair Escobedo.
Here.
Commissioner Kim Johnson.
Present.
Got it. Commissioner Rachel Johnson.
Present.
Commissioner Jordan Killebrew.
Present.
Commissioner Jacob Lesnar Buxton, absent. Commissioner O'Gorman.
Here.
Commissioner Lizzie Rodriguez.
Here.
Commissioner Richard Sander.
Present.
Commissioner Louisa Wood.
Present.
And Vice Chair Zepeda.
Here.
And alternate Louis Reynell. Okay, you have a quorum, Chair Escobedo.
Thank you, Sam. And before we move on to any items, we have a special guest tonight. We have City Administrator Rebecca Bjork here to introduce herself. So Rebecca, I'll turn it over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm very pleased to meet you all and hope not to be a special guest. I hope to be here frequently. I appreciate very much the work that you all are doing. I know it is a very big job, and I know that you are giving it a very serious consideration and attention for the best interests of our local community, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Rebecca.
you. And before we move on into public comment or anything on the agenda, I did want to make a few remarks regarding the commission, our work, and then also making space for ourselves. I think some of us, myself included at times, have felt a little burnt out in this process. I think for many of us, this is a larger time commitment than we had first anticipated. But I also know that we're all invested in this work, and we have a great group of people on this commission. And I say this because what we're working on, it's big, it's important. I don't have to tell you. The heaviness of the task can be perceived as a burden sometimes, or it could be big. It could be daunting. But I want to take this time to say we are doing a really good job. And we are a lot further on in this process than a lot of people thought we were going to be. And we are doing more than was expected of us. It may not feel like it at times, but we are making important decisions. We're making progress towards our goal. And it's important to know that this commission is much different than other boards and commissions in the city. I tell you this from personal experience. I think others on this commission can tell you from personal experience. And I mean, if we just think about it, those boards and commissions have been around for decades, and we built this commission in months. That's pretty big. Our task is inherently different, and we should recognize that. I bring that up to say, let's be gentle with ourselves, flexible with each other, and make space for the idea that if we don't meet the March deadline, we will be okay. We're going to get there. We are making progress towards our ultimate goal. And then additionally, I'd like to say, I know we're receiving some feedback can feel like criticism that we aren't doing well, but I challenge us to receive that feedback with the lens that it's constructive information to make our commission better and to get closer to our ultimate goal. Our jobs are to weigh all of the options that we have in front of us and choose the best one for the city. That's hard. And we want that feedback. That feedback is going to help us ultimately reach our goal. So I know you all are working hard, and the public sees 2 meetings a month, but I know many of you are meeting multiple times in between our meetings, and that's a lot. Juggling that with family, with work, with relationships, with just life. The public should know how hard you all are working. And even juggling all those things, you all are doing great. We are all doing great. So if we find ourselves too busy at times to be part of a work group, just know that that's okay. It's okay to step back from some of those things. If you want to be more involved, let us know. I know I've talked to a couple that want to be more involved. It's all about leaning on each other and trusting in our collective wisdom to make the right decision. And I think that we will. So with all that said, we're in the heart of this process. I believe that if we can get past this part, we're going to have shorter meetings. We're going to have a lot more space in between our meetings for restorative time. Anna and I have talked, and we're going to be much more diligent about keeping on time. And as it relates to tonight, I think we could all use a shorter, productive meeting. So I'm going to suggest that we get as far as we can in our discussion about the review board, table the auditor monitor discussion. We're going to shoot for about 2 hours in this meeting, maybe a little bit over, but not much. And then hopefully a productive meeting tonight. That's pretty short. And then 2 weeks to get some restorative time to recover will do us all some good. But I just wanted to say those things. You all are doing amazing work. I know I appreciate you. Many people in the community appreciate you and the work you're putting in. So I've taken up too much time at the beginning of this meeting, but I'll open up the floor if anyone wanted to add or say their piece as well. And if not, that's okay too. Rich?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Gabe. I think it's awesome that you said something. I think it's really easy to feel that we're not moving at the pace that we should be moving. But again, this is an important work. And rather than trying to squeeze it all in, I think that we can be a little more gracious to ourselves, work well and diligently. And if we need, as you said, move that deadline, so be it. We'll make that happen. Our goal is to make the best recommendation we have and not hurt ourselves in the process. So that's a good thing. Gabe, I know I talked with you, and you even said that someone did some research that we're well along in the process than others who have done this work. Is that true?
Yeah, Lizzie, I don't know if you want to share that that was during our conversation. That made me feel really good about where we're at and the work that we're doing. I don't know if you feel comfortable sharing that with the group.
Sure. And this.
Chair, oh, sorry, Chair. I'm Chair Scabito. I apologize for interrupting. My just concern about it is I think I'm always trying to be cautious. I think the best way to analogize like a lawyer in my role for this board when it comes to the Brown Act is like a boxing referee, knowing when to step in or not. I appreciate more. First of all, I want to say I appreciate the work this commission has done. I understand it's taken on a Herculean task of trying to get a lot of information and go through all this information in such a short time. I just don't want to go devolve into too much more context just for the purposes of the Brown Act. That's all. So just being really careful on that.
John, would it be possible to let Lizzie just share this one piece of information?
Sure,
I don't think
absolutely. Yes, that's absolutely fine. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it in our small work group. Thank you, Doimus, first of all, for reminding us about the importance of Brown Act, and thank you, Chair Gabe, for I think giving us permission to breathe a little bit. I think we are all here because we feel so deeply about this this process, and when that happens, sometimes our passion can override our capacity. So I genuinely thank you for giving us permission to breathe. And I'll just share, and this isn't for all, all the various oversight boards or even development boards, but the fact that we have a development board, that's new and different, and that's great. So we're already one step ahead in the organizing process. And then just a brief conversation I had with somebody who's associated with another oversight body, we're already surpassing what they've done, and they started well before we have. So we are doing great work. I think we're doing thorough work. So yeah, congratulations everyone, and good job.
So yeah, go ahead.
Mayor.
Mary, sorry.
Oh, Yeah, and John, I heard you, so I'm going to frame this as a question to you that had occurred to me. Anyways, some commissions have something on like brief comments from commissioners or something like that. As an example, there are a couple meetings coming up that I thought would be of interest, but I thought there's really nowhere on the agenda to say that. So, and I would also just like to say I appreciate everybody. So
Well, thank you for Chair Escobedo, Commissioner Gore. First of all, yeah, I don't want to rain on someone's parade. First of all, again, the city's appreciation for all the work this commission has done. Very, very hardworking. Again, the work you've had to do in this short time is just very impressive. I think that's fine to bring that up in future business. So that's the time at least to talk about it. It gives you it's more of a catch-all. Just as long as we're not going into anything substantive, that's the key. That's the only thing. So my only interruption was for the purposes of engaging more and more conversation on this. That was the only purpose on it. So, but thank you for the question, letting me chime in on it.
appreciate it.
Thanks, John. All right. So as to not bring on John again, we will move on to public comment, and this will be public comment for all items that are not related to items on today's agenda. So Sam, do we have anyone that wants to give general public comment?
Let's find out. If there's anyone in the public that would like to speak, please click on the raise your hand icon. There's one comment, or excuse me, one member of the public, Felicity Landa. I have unmuted you. Give me 1 second. If you can, unmute yourself.
Hello. I'm so sorry. This is a comment for something on the agenda, but I have 2 little kids and I have to do bedtime. So I just wanted to add my voice, and I appreciate you hearing me. I'm here as a community member, and I am advocating for Healing Justice Santa Barbara. I want to add my voice to theirs in their request that police or law enforcement should not be present on the Civilian Review Board. It really makes no sense and really negates the entire purpose of the board for police to determine or investigate abuses by their coworkers, and that this board must really remain community-centered. The review board should include the most impacted people, including LGBTQIA+ folks, undocumented people, people with disabilities, formerly incarcerated, and no more than 60% of one gender. So I wanted to add my voice to theirs. And I appreciate you hearing me. Again, apologies. I just do have to sign off, and I want to thank you for the great work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there are 2 other comments from the public. Give me 1 second. Chelsea Lancaster, I've unmuted you. You may click on the microphone and go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to keep this really brief. I just also wanted to call in and amplify the same messaging. If we remember why we got here and how we got here, this was centered around the movement for Black lives, collective liberation, and making sure that we can keep one another safe, with especially centering the most marginalized among us. There's a huge power imbalance that currently exists in policing, and the ways in which police get to investigate themselves. I just want to name that when we have too much police involvement or any police involvement, we therefore render this process unsafe for a lot of the individuals who wish to participate. So I just wanted to really amplify that message and just thank everybody on the commission for all the work that they're doing. I know it's challenging. I know y'all are doing a lot, but really just wanted to bring that again to the forefront and amplify that message, and just remind you all that there are people in the community who are paying attention, who are here to support you. And yeah, we're invested. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's anyone else in the public that'd like to speak, please click on the raise hand icon. Give me 1 second, Chair. There's one additional comment. Leticia Forney, I have unmuted you, so go ahead. Leticia, you are unmuted. You can go ahead. Leticia, if you'd like to speak, this is an opportunity. You are unmuted. You can go ahead. I'll see if she'd like to speak, Chair, but this time there are no further comments.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to the administrative agenda, and we will move on to A, consideration and action on the draft Community Formation Commission meeting minutes for September 8th, 2021. Did anyone want to make any changes to the meeting minutes? Not seeing any. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So moved.
Okay, seconded.
We have Christian with the motion, Louisa with the second.
Okay, there's been a motion to approve the minutes as presented, made by Commissioner Alonso, seconded by Commissioner Wood. All in favor, say aye.
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 Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And then we're going to move on to the second part of the administrative agenda. And I do want to make a note. I know that it says consideration and action on the scope of work for the survey partner. I'm going to ask if it's possible for us not to take action on this tonight, but for the survey group to present the scope of work, discuss it briefly, and then we have a lead on a possible second survey partner. And so we would like to bring a second, hopefully, scope of work for the commission to weigh and then make a decision. So with that, I will turn it over to Rachel, who will give a brief summary of the scope of work.
Excellent. Thank you, Gabe. Yes, so the survey working group met twice with the Center for Court Innovation. The senior program manager is Elizabeth Ling. We met with her and her colleagues to discuss what our hopes were for the survey and what kind of services they could provide in terms of helping us form that, and then also analysis. So their first scope of work was quite a bit more comprehensive than what we were looking for, and more specifically, probably would have just taken a lot more time than what we have. But it actually gave us an interesting model to think of in terms of what kind of recommendations we might make for the actual oversight body when they are ready to do a much more comprehensive climate survey, and things that we've talked about in the past about that. So the revised scope of work is much more condensed. It's basically set to be the time frame between mid-October through mid-February of next year, so October 15th, 2021 to February 15th, 2022. The budget is $23,122. And basically the scope of work for it is there's administrative sections, so they're going to be kind of like what Cami does for us. They'll come to the survey working group meetings and the full commission meetings as needed, sort of participate in our discussions around that. They'll do survey analysis, so we kind of discuss that we can probably come up with questions and demographics that we're interested in, but we definitely want an outside third party to clean up the data set, code questions for us, especially open-ended questions, and then provide us with sort of the analytics that we can then incorporate. And then for the qualitative feedback, we wanted to find ways to do focus groups. And so we talked with them about the community cafe model, and they can help us facilitate sort of smaller group discussions, which seem to align with what we've discussed as a commission before about wanting to do with particular parts of our community when we all go out then as ambassadors to get feedback about our draft recommendation. So they can be assisting in those, doing them virtually, and then analyze that data because that's going to be obviously a lot of qualitative data, so they can help identify key themes. And then their findings and summary in the original proposal was an incredibly elaborate report. So again, I think that's something for the future, and the survey group, we kind of agreed with that. So they'll create detailed enough survey findings and analytics, and then provide us with a short summary that we can easily distribute then to the stakeholders.
Any questions?
I guess, hello?
Mary?
Yeah, and this may, I don't know, overlap into the item from the education and marketing, but I guess at some point those focuses either have to fit together or overlap, or I'm not sure if it's part of a larger communications plan or something. So I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. Or is the idea that the survey would be independent of the other outreach that we're doing, or that we're at some point going to do?
I mean, I can address that quickly. No, the survey group certainly, yeah, the understanding is that this survey is absolutely integrated into the rest of the education and outreach that we're talking about. So this would be one piece of how we would go about getting as broad as possible, community feedback that we can, given the time that we have. So no, I mean, absolutely, the survey, ideally, I think as we've talked about before, the survey would go out with a link to the educational materials and videos that the outreach and education group is planning. And then if we did something like focus groups, we would also present that standardized material before going into questions or offering the survey to folks. So definitely part of the integrated strategy.
Absolutely.
If you don't mind, I'll jump in. So I think survey is a little misleading. It's really a feedback collection. So it follows the education that is done. So it's, yeah, feedback collection.
And I do think, I mean, as part of, so right now it's sort of this general scopes of work in terms of the partner, but then at, when we get to future business, there will certainly be a time for the commission to discuss what those questions are, the feedback questions themselves that we'll be asking. So that'll be another discussion.
Great, thanks.
Also, for the goals and the budget, does this also include like any language accessibility that we may need for individuals, or is that in addition?
So that is left out of the scope of work in terms of what CCI would provide, but obviously things like translation and any language interpretation we would need for events. I guess, I mean, we didn't specifically talk about that with the consultants, but that's certainly something we understand we would need to ask the city to factor in addition to this budget.
And it's my understanding that the city can provide those services.
Mm-hmm.
So
it was all part of the discussion of creative and diverse ways to collect data, which led us to the model of community cafes, because that would make it easier for some folks to share feedback. And I appreciate your continuous reminder to make sure we have all information accessible to all sects of our community. So thank you for that.
any other questions on the scope of work, CCI themselves?
I'm just wondering how did they come to your attention, or did they seek out the work? Or?
No, this is a group that Chief Malekian had worked with in the past, and when we reached out to everyone for possible survey partners, which was harder to find survey partners than you would think, especially those familiar with this particular type of work. And this is one that he was able to connect us with, and they're doing some really fantastic work.
One final thought, and Gabe, I talked to you a little about this, but the one committee that I was on with Rich and Jacob, basically, we were collecting information on, outreach opportunities and all that. But it may be, if there's room on this committee, that I could fit on there, since a lot of what you're going to be looking at is where to go, I guess. Just trying to figure out the best way to integrate that work.
Yeah, it definitely has room for another person on that work group. So I think that can definitely happen.
Great.
Any other questions, comments for the survey working group as they go? Serafina?
Yeah, so I did a little bit of research on their website, and I was just wondering, I might have missed this, but do you guys know if they have done any other projects similar to what we're doing, or worked with any other cities collecting data in a similar way?
The short answer is they haven't done any work specifically to civilian oversight, but they've done a lot of work in justice-related items. So whether it's prison reform, they shared a few studies with us that we would be more than happy to share with the full commission to get a full scope of what their work looks like. Particularly, I think they were good examples, as Rachel said, about what the ultimate oversight body could use for their climate studies when they're doing them on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think, yeah, just to add to that, nothing as specific as what we're doing in terms of the particulars, but definitely lots of very impressive examples that also required sort of wanting to get quantitative data as well as qualitative to factor in certain demographics that we definitely wanted to, have captured as much as possible. So yeah, there were definitely studies that I think if y'all are interested, absolutely you should look at them, because I think when it does come time to discuss which, like, the kinds of questions we actually want to ask, those offer really good examples of how to ask questions too. And they help design all those surveys, so.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anyone else, even comments for the survey group as they try to find a second partner? All right, I'm not seeing any. So we can close out this item and move on. Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, Chair Escobedo, did you want to open it up to public comment?
Yes, we did.
Okay, let me just see if anybody in the public would like to speak on this item. If you would like to speak on this item, click on the raise hand icon. Give me one moment. Chelsea Lancaster, you're unmuted if you'd like to speak on the scope of work item before you. It's item 4B. If you'd like to speak on this item, Chelsea, this is your opportunity to speak on item 4B. Okay, we will move on to the next comment. Just give me 1 second. Letitia, I see that you have your hand raised. Give me 1 second and I will unmute you. Letitia Forney, you have your hand raised. You're unmuted. Go ahead. Letitia Forney, if you'd like to speak on this item, you are unmuted. You can go ahead. Don't see anything, Mr. Chair, so we will close the public comment.
Okay, thank you. And if for some reason Ms. Forney wants this, there was technical difficulties, if you'd like to send in your public comment via written public comment, you can send it to cfc@santabarbaraca.gov. That's cfc@santabarbaraca.gov. Thank you. And we will close this item and we will move on to the next item for tonight, which is a update from the Marketing and Education Group. And I'll turn it over to Jordan.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be gathered here once again. So the Marketing Education Group, we have been working, which is Luisa, Christian, Anna, and Gabe. We've been working in tandem with Cami. Thank you so much, Cami, for your guidance. And I think since August, we've met 8 or 9 times, each time trying to focus on what is the priority and how are we going to integrate everything that we do. Since our last meeting, it was brought up that there is City TV, and that's an opportunity where we can, explain exactly what we're trying to do, explain our models, and work and move forward. So before I get into what City TV and the work that we're going to do with them, I first want to just talk about that we are creating a overall general presentation, a PowerPoint presentation that will hopefully address the who, the why, the what, and include our models and everything, and our model recommendation and everything from there. So with that, it's a kind of an empty document at this point because we haven't really decided on much. But our goal is, as we continue to work through this process, we will take pieces and language that has been approved, add it to that PowerPoint, and continue to move forward. With the videos, we're really, really grateful to have City TV. We met with them, was it last Friday or 2 Fridays ago, to talk through what this could look like. And what we agreed on is perhaps having 4 videos. The first video, which is really just kind of an introduction, where we'll have city council members that are not running for election come and kind of interview Gabe and Anna and say, hey, what is this? Or why are we doing this? So really, it's kind of an entryway for the community to see a city council member and Gabe and Anna explain what exactly is the Community Formation Commission. Then we're hoping to have a second video, probably around October, late October, early November, to be published, to talk about the actual model and how can we synthesize that and get that out to the community. This hopefully will coincide with the data gathering so that we can say, hey, please, we can send out that link along with the video if the timing's right, or we can work around that, and then hopefully get feedback from the community. At the end of these videos, we always want to have a call to action, so hopefully people will give us feedback in that timely manner. Again, the third and fourth videos are really to re-look at the data, put that into the video, say these are the changes that we've made, please review this model, and then hopefully the final video will be, this is the model that we hope to present to the community, to the city council, please review and give us, and this is going to city council. So I'm gonna stop there before we get in any deeper because that was a lot. And I wanna see if there's any questions before we move forward. Is that clear? Awesome.
I have a couple. One I think is a suggestion, and another's maybe another suggestion. You said hopefully the surveys will be, follow that, and I just want to emphasize that I think we need to make that a commitment and a priority. That we otherwise we are just talking to community. We don't have the surveys following the education component. We're not having that dialogue from community. So I just want to, emphasize that we make that a must as opposed to a hope. And then I love all of your marketing suggestions. It's awesome. I'd also like to encourage things like the WHIP is a new form on Instagram. Josh Molina's, his podcast. I think there's just a few more digital platforms that could be used as well. And then, you know, what are Bronco Radio, some of our Spanish language platforms would be great.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lizzie. We have a whole list of all of that. Right now, we're just focusing on what is our content and how are we going to develop these videos and getting that language. But absolutely, I love those suggestions, and we will add them to our list of notes when we're ready to send out all this information. But right now, we just want to create something. Create something. And so these videos will be in Spanish and English, just because it's so important to have that. And we do have a script, although I see there's some folks in it. And I want to at least run it by people, because again, this is language that we need to approve together and run through together. And Sam, am I able to share my screen, or do I have to share that with you? Or how does that work?
I can make you a presenter, Jordan, if you'd like.
Thank you.
Give me 1 second.
So for the timeline for the video number 1 is actually going to be very quick, because we want people to help start resonating who we are and what we're doing. Because as soon as we start sending them out like, oh, here's a model, they're going to be like, what is this about? Show my screen. Is that how that works? Which screen is it showing? Can you see my screen, everyone? So you see the video intro. All right, so the idea is that we will hopefully start filming next week. And this video is very simple. It's really just a quick introduction between our city council members, introducing Gabe and Anna, and also introducing CFC.
Jordan, would you mind increasing the size of your screen? Command plus, just so people can read it.
We can also do that. We can also increase it on our end.
Yeah. Not sure the community can as much.
Sorry, 1 second. I'm trying to do that, but it's not working. Wow.
Jordan, while you figure that out, the one thing I would like to share to the commission that I think is important also for the community to know is I had asked Cami if had any other commission that she knows of had done any sort of type of educational or marketing, such as making videos. And Cami had said that we were the first commission to ever do anything like this. So I just want to say this is exciting because we're getting into new territory. Also kind of nerve-wracking because we're getting into new territory, but it's exciting because we're moving forward.
Absolutely. So again, this video we're hoping to film next week and then hopefully get it out in October, if not before that, so that people start getting to know who we are, and hopefully can also help promote people engaging with us in our meetings. So really the call to action here is, hey, get to know us. These are, we ask for your headshots so that we can put these in here and help people understand who we are. And then also, hey, please check out our website or the city website for us, and also please come engage with our meetings. So video number 1, intro CFC script. Gabe and Anna, I believe both of them will be introduced. Anna will be doing the Spanish version with, I believe, Alejandra Gutierrez, and then Oscar will be doing the English one. And so, Gabe, I don't know if you want to practice right now.
Hi there, I'm Gabe Escobedo. I'm the chair of the Community Formation Commission. I would also like to introduce Ana Zepeda, the vice chair, and Mayor Pro Tem Oscar Gutierrez. We are here today to educate the community on the Community Formation Commission to create civilian oversight of the Santa Barbara Police Department. What does that even mean? Mr. Gutierrez, can you tell us more?
Absolutely. And so this is language that was actually taken from our original, when we were all interviewing. This is just language taken from the city. So sure, in June of 2020, after calls from the community for increased transparency and accountability for the Santa Barbara Police Department following the death of George Floyd and the continued need for change, and in response to the overwhelming outpour of public demand in our local community, the Santa Barbara City Council established the Community Formation Commission to guide the creation of civilian police review system. The CFC is currently exploring different civilian police review systems, existing and new police accountability systems, and the specific needs of Santa Barbara's many communities. The CFC is also reviewing the Santa Barbara Police Department's existing standards and protocols. Following the examination of these issues within the context of Santa Barbara's specific needs and systems, the CFC will make recommendations to City Council for the creation of a civilian oversight system in Santa Barbara. Right here, Louisa and I have actually gone back to meetings and actually pulled out links to the meetings where there is community public comment. We also have we've pulled all articles about CFC, so this can also be added hopefully to the website. Just kind of if we need more content to pull quotes or actually, prove that there was a lot of community members that were interested in this, we have that as backup. So that's why it says add photos of meetings or some direct quotes. Over 90 people were interviewed by the City Council for 13 positions on the commission and 2 alternate positions. The amount of interest in the Community Formation Committee demonstrates the commitment of the community to see the process through. Now, Gabe, I have a question for you. How is this commission different from other commissions?
This commission is set up to uplift the oversight of the police department. Our goal is to create a framework that works for our community and is able to provide transparency for all. We're working with the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, who has worked with cities like Santa Barbara that aim to add oversight for the police department. Our commission is diverse, dedicated, and includes, and then we'll have names and pictures.
Absolutely.
And then if you're interested in this process and want to take part, please tune in to our meetings every second and fourth Wednesday of the month. We want to hear from you, and then we can close out with a link to the website. And I think you established a bit.ly, Jordan?
Yes, I've established a bit.ly that I think it's bit.ly/CFC for SBPD. But I can share that with Sam to share with everyone. And that takes people directly to our city government website. So I do want to take a moment to pause because we just read through that. That was a lot of information. Any thoughts, questions, comments, or concerns?
I think it's great. One thought I had was maybe taking a video from when the City Council voted unanimously, just a short clip, just kind of to emphasize, that's why we're here.
That's what we're gonna, Jordan and I have a lot of work to do to look through all that and find all those gems, but that is the plan. That is the plan.
Cool. Because you have a lot of time on your hands.
So much. Other questions? I can't see all of the commissioners in this view, but anybody else?
I think that I was going to say, I just think that was an excellent idea and execution. My only suggestion was what was said earlier as far as tying it into the cause, but I'm excited about it. I think that looks good.
Yeah. All right.
Great job. Very succinct, and just all the information needed is there. Nice work.
Sweet. Well,
can I just jump in, Jordan? I'm sorry, before you finish up. I just want to say this is amazing that you guys have taken this extra step. I know that it had been mentioned before. Louisa had said that, that I haven't seen other commissions and task forces like this take this extra step, but between the survey and this education piece, it shows a huge commitment to not only just talking to the community, but really getting the information out there and having a way for input to come back to you. And so I just want to applaud the effort. I know it is taking a tremendous amount of time and energy, but it's pretty amazing. So I just want to applaud you for it.
Thank you. Thank you. So with that, I will go ahead and, Sam, you can stop sharing my screen, please. and with that, what will happen next is, we have lots of meetings scheduled for our marketing education working group, just because, that is what we need to do. We need to start educating the community and marketing this. So just know that we have lots of meetings set up in the upcoming weeks, and this is our first major project that we hope to get out to the public ASAP. And maybe by our next meeting, well, I think this will be ready, the video will be ready before our next meeting, so I'm leaning on Sam, if there's a final, to please send it out to the commission as a whole, if that's okay.
Oh. Jordan, can I just ask a question on that?
Yes.
Are we going to actually talk now through like what the other videos will be like as well, or is it going to be kind of rolled out where y'all will do a presentation like this at subsequent meetings?
I feel responsible that we should be presenting to you all at every meeting, just like, here, this is what we're thinking. But I also would love to, we can brainstorm real quick. I also want to be, respectful of time as we're coming up on 1 hour. But essentially, our second video is really taking the framework that we have decided and putting that into language to then explain. Now, I don't know if that video will be something that's like a whiteboard or a whiteboard video. I don't know if you all know what that is, but it's like a drawing and they like explain what it does and kind of break it down. I don't know if that's just going to be, us talking, but really it comes along the lines of what we decide on and then how do we distill that information for everyone. Does that make sense, Rachel?
Yeah, no, it totally does. And I think that's why I was just curious to kind of know what the vision is for the other ones, because I think to reiterate Lizzie's point earlier, like absolutely, like we will get the survey done whenever you need us to get it done to be synced up to that, right? Like absolutely. But I was also thinking about, around that point with the survey is also when we're going to be reaching out to all these different places in the community and the folks that each of us know, right? Like at what point do we become, the outreach ambassadors in a real way? Because I know not everyone is comfortable being in videos, but like, I really just like the idea of everybody having a chance to be in one of these if they would like to. Just because, right, like when we go out and do these working groups too, these are going to be people who have heard us tout the diversity and the intentionality about putting this group together. And I think, right, like, I love that, like, centering Gabe and Anna with the council members in the first one. And I just think that people are going to be looking too to like hear from individual commissioners maybe. And I know that's tricky to like imagine trying to get everybody filmed, but
I think that's a possibility. I think that's a beautiful idea. We would love to include as many people as possible.
And I think we can make that we can make that happen if people are interested. It's all about if you're willing to get in front of a camera, and it's nerve-wracking, but we do want you all to be a part of it. And that's something that Jordan and I did want to, the group, we do want everyone to be a part of it. And if you want to, please reach out to us and say, hey, I'd love to do something, and we'll just start brainstorming of how that's going to happen.
Absolutely. And I'm excited for that. Sorry, I just got a message. So yeah, excited to include as many people as possible in that process. But I also want folks to feel empowered that when you see this video, that you share it with your networks. You share it as far and wide as you can, because we like Rachel said, we are those ambassadors. So please share it on your social media. Please share both versions, Spanish and English, because as we start sending out these, we sent out a flyer 2 weeks ago. Please send that out to get people to be engaged. Please send out these videos and anything that we develop, because we need as many people involved as possible.
And we also have a comment in our chat.
Yeah.
I'm going to read it out just for the public.
Thank you.
It just says, hi, Jordan, can you, and this is from Kim Johnson, and it just says, hi, Jordan, can you confirm if there's a line of copy within the script that states we will source, comment, / work alongside community leaders to make the recommendation. Just want to make sure people know they will be part of the process alongside the commissioners.
I think that's an excellent point, and I think that should be where Gabe and Anna come back and say, what also makes us unique is that we are working in tandem with the community. We want your feedback. We want you to be involved. All right. Thank you so much, Kim.
All right. Any other feedback?
I was just going to chime in next.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, just so I've been the past couple of months, I've had conflicts with law school, and so I have not, as you know, I wasn't at the previous meeting. So if I have interest in groups I would like to join, but I also want to know if there's any groups that needed another member. I'll put that, as a priority based on need. And just to inform you, I just had dental surgery, so that's the reason I'm icing my face. I had a couple questions. I'm fine. I've just been icing after some dental surgery. I had some swelling, so just want to let you guys know why I'm icing my face.
Thank you. And now, Demo, I'll connect with you after the meeting to figure out a work group to join.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else? All right. Sam, if we could open up public comment on this item, if anyone has any feedback from the public.
Sure, just give me 1 second. I see 2 hands raised, but just want to make sure that they have a comment on this item. If anyone would like to speak on the update from the marketing and education work group, please raise your hand. Click on the hand raise icon. Give me 1 second. Letitia Forney asked, is it possible to have subtitles added to the to this video?
Absolutely. I think closed captioning will be definitely added.
Okay. And there are no further questions or comments from, oh, never mind. There are no further questions or comments from the public. They're good to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Anything else from the commission before we move on to the next item? Awesome. Do we want to take a quick break, 5 minutes, and stretch your legs, and then we come back at 6:30? How's it sound?
That sounds
Perfect.
great. Eat a snack.
Yeah, everyone grab a snack, stretch your legs. We'll be back at 6:30. All right. We can call the meeting back to order at 6:30, and we will move on to the next item, which is a continued item from last meeting. It is the discussion on review board authorities and procedures. And I will turn it over to Cami.
Thanks, Gabe. Sam, do you mind making me the presenter? Thank you. Okay, just wanted to start and give everyone a quick reminder of what we're doing. So last week we talked about review boards, and there are 4 main areas that we're focusing on, and that is the purpose, composition, training, and powers and duties. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, sorry, I gave all of you some examples of what purpose and composition look like for other communities who had put together civilian oversight. And really, all we're doing at this point is brainstorming. What we're putting out there are ideas. They are not the final decision. And what will happen, as you saw in that kind of working document that we've started putting together, is that we're putting all of those brainstorming ideas into one place where then you can start going in and narrowing it down to what will become the draft recommendations that you share with the community for their feedback. So some things that are said today or 2 weeks ago are things that you may not choose to move forward with, or there may be things that you feel very confident in moving forward with. So I just want everyone to feel very comfortable and that this is a brainstorming session, and that everyone should feel good in throwing out ideas and having discussions around them. So today we're going to focus on training and powers and duties. I think that is probably in the next 55 minutes really most of what we'll get to. I hope that all of you had a chance to review some of the ordinances that I sent to you prior to this meeting. I know that I highlighted in there, and I hope that helped. I highlighted the parts that were specific to purpose and composition, because I know that sometimes looking at those documents, I know my eyes sometimes get wide and I'm like, where do I need to focus and what does all of this mean? And so I'm hoping that that helped kind of get you to one place quickly where you could kind of get the lay of the land with the ordinance and the language that it uses. All of those documents that I sent you also had information on training and powers and duties. I hope you had a moment to kind of look through there. That might help inform your discussion today. And then after this discussion, I definitely will send you some more examples, some more highlighted documents that speak specifically to training and powers and duties. So you'll have those to look at as well, to continue gaining that knowledge as you move through the process. When we're done tonight, we'll kind of assess where we end and then talk about exactly what to expect at the next meeting. I think I'm really glad Gabe took the opportunity to talk about, doing what we can at a speed that is best for the process. And I think particularly given the fact that you are taking extra steps that we haven't seen or don't see often with other task forces or commissions that are doing what you're doing, I think that it's taking some extra time. And I think that that's perfectly fine, because what you're doing in between these meetings, developing the education pieces, working on the survey, finding out where in the community you can go to engage with people, I think all of that is so important, and is just as important as some of the work that you're doing at these meetings, talking about the different recommendations. So if it takes us a little longer, and you have a better product because of it, I think, cheers. I think that would be lovely. Okay, so let's move on. And please remember, once I get into this and I'm typing in the brainstorming, I can't see in your faces, so you'll just have to kind of jump in as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and move us down to the training piece. So training is, just to kind of get us started, different communities have are more or less specific depending on what they wanted to include in their code. But for the most part, what NACO recommends as an effective practice around training is that you have a broad range of training. So essentially, when you are put onto a board as a member of the community, you may not have a very good knowledge of civilian oversight. I know that when I became a member of civilian oversight, now granted, it was a while ago, and there weren't as many civilian oversight entities as there are now. It definitely wasn't a topic you saw in the news very often, but I had no idea what other civilian oversight entities were doing, what other authorities or our own authorities really could look like. I didn't know anything about police department policies. I knew why the board existed, and I felt very strongly about its purpose, but there was a lot of things that I needed to learn along the way. And I think that that's the case very, very often with people who become board or commission members in civilian oversight. So sometimes the topics and sources that we see are police department operations, policies, practices, and procedures, information about police oversight and community policing, information on constitutional rights and civil liberties, cultural awareness and racial equity, complaint process, investigative procedures, confidentiality requirements, ethics, public records and public meeting laws, quasi-judicial duties and obligations of the board, and fundamentals of procedures, evidence, and due process. So all of those things are the things that we do see in some of the other ordinances that are out there. One of the things that's not on this list that we often see, and it really kind of falls under the police department operations, are things like ride-alongs. We see sometimes where there is general training requirements, and we see sometimes very specific. Sometimes we see people put in actual number of hours of training required. So with that, I would love if anybody would like to jump in and start throwing out some ideas or thoughts about how they feel about training for this particular review entity that you're looking at creating.
I think all those are good, pretty essential. Depending on, the ultimate final authority that we recommend for the board, we may or may not need the quasi-judicial duties, because I don't know that we would be a quasi-judicial board. Although explaining the other boards that exist that we've talked about, like the Civil Service Commission that is quasi-judicial, maybe having that in there somewhere. But
okay.
Before you get to copying the fourth one, because that's the one you're actually typing right now. I just want to call maybe a subtle difference, but something like cultural competency rather than awareness. And obviously racial equity, but I think more broader equity, right? I mean, we talk all the time about, how many more considerations and learning areas there have been for us in terms of, disability, LGBTQ communities, their undocumented, neighbors, things like that are really particular to our community that we want to make sure are represented. So I think sort of broader equity training I don't know if it's too specific to potentially say sourcing that kind of training from within our community, but really leaning into that.
And I think along that lines, a history on race and policing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so, equity and then implicit bias or just bias training.
And some sexual harassment background, as that often comes up in police department complaints.
So I think all of this is really important in making sure that the board is competent, has the information they need to make these often, or what I assume will be, could be potentially difficult decisions to make. So I'm wondering, like, we had a pretty extensive conversation and talking about like the board composition, about not like pigeonholing ourselves into a situation where the board seats are vacant, right? We have a lot of vacancies in the city as it is. And so I'm wondering like what consideration we want to give to the training, because a lot of these examples that Cami sent over involve not just training, but also ongoing training. And I'm just wondering like what considerations we want to make for those types of requirements for people that maybe are parents, right, and have other obligations, and if that would be like too much training, or I want to know what the balance is, and I would be interested to hear what the other commissioners think about that.
Yeah, I think that'll have a lot to do with like what we're tasking them with. Like, are we tasking them with being responsible for investigating the whole like issue, or are they more just kind of like reviewing and being an advisory body that another agency is gonna follow up with? So I think it obviously if they're gonna be making like actual like investigations and ruling on that, then they're gonna have to. It's just there's no other way. They're going to have to be trained and all that. If they have a more advisory role, then we would have to decide like what direction that goes, and then the training can be dictated accordingly, I would think.
I think, Christian, you bring up a really good point, and I think I think at this point, at least, I'm on the side of caution and over education, over information rather than less, because even especially in an advisory role, I think what we're learning right now, just through this process, is there's a lot to know. And it would feel like we're asking someone to do more than we're giving them the tools to do by not having a required set of training. And as you said, Christian, an ongoing set of training. So kind of like CEUs, they have to complete so many units to serve on the commission.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I totally think that's important to bring up. And I think when we get to the ideas for compensation, things like adequate compensation and childcare should be on those lists as well.
I'm going to go ahead and put that down on this list, so it just
Sorry, we're jumping ahead.
No, it's okay, because as you noticed on that other document that I created, there were some things that went other places. I think it's good if you're thinking about it, let's put it down so it doesn't get lost.
I mean, I think is mediation training on here somewhere, or what's another word, Lizzie, for it?
Conflict resolution.
Yeah, there you go.
Facilitation.
Stuff like that, yeah. Because some of those tools, I think, help no matter what the role is, in review, because even among commissioners, I mean, especially when you're meeting in person, I can say, I mean, on talking about difficult subjects, disagreements, that it's really important to have that training capacity for resolution.
And thank you, Cami, for allowing us access to the NACOL conference, because I've been watching those things daily, at least one a day, and sometimes repeated because it's just so good. And so what I'd like, because it's folks like us who are lessons learned, you know, they're sharing what they've learned through this process. And some of it was through error, some of it was they did it and it worked well. So I would like to see, you know, maybe not every commissioner, but a certain number of commissioners attend the annual NACO conference and then bring that material back.
Well, that's a good idea.
Which then kind of leads to membership. And we haven't really talked about our commission becoming members of the NACO group.
Yeah, Cami thought she could get rid of us after this, but not if we have anything to say about it.
Once she comes out to Santa Barbara a couple times, she won't want to.
Oh, I doubt that. So I have a couple things I need to interject. So first, after I made the big deal about we should include what Rachel's comment was, even though it wasn't necessarily in training, now I can't remember what the second part was. It was adequate compensation and
childcare.
Childcare.
Thank you. And then the other piece is that I just want to remind all of you that that offer to get you access to the annual conference still stands. I haven't heard from all of you. Although we're already 20, I think the 21st session was today, of the 32, we have recordings of all of them. So you can still sign up and have access. So please feel free to email me with, if you're interested in that. So
Cami, I keep meaning to do that and I forget. So let me
make the note right now.
I'm very interested in having that access and also possibly attending the one in December. So
wonderful. Okay, great.
Thanks.
Yeah, I was also, thanks for suggesting the mediation. That's what I was thinking about bringing up earlier. I know we discussed earlier, and I told you guys earlier I did that mediation training. It was at the Conflict Resolution Institute. They're an agency based in Ventura that does conflict resolution, and they I just felt that the perspectives and the way they framed those discussions would be helpful, as was just mentioned, on the commission. So I just want to second that. I think that would be very beneficial, whether or not, regardless of what powers they have or like how we structure the commission. I think that'll be helpful no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if this is implied in the police department operations, but you had mentioned earlier ride-alongs, and I do think sort of practical experiences, however possible, can be important.
So I had seen also that those were included in a lot of the other ordinances with respect to the training requirements, and I'm wondering, like, what is the material like benefit of requiring ride-alongs as part of the training for the potential committee members?
I mean, I can answer that. It's part of my role in education is to be able to see what it's actually like to be a police officer, to understand what they're experiencing every day, to understand what it's like to be in a situation where someone is escalated and might be aggressive, you know, to be able to experience those types of things, and to also see how their training might be put into place. So you know what they're being trained on. Are they then actually able to do it? You know, especially when there's somebody watching them doing it. I find that I think that is extremely advantageous, and absolutely this group should be doing that.
What about an annual firearms simulation training? Like, what would be the material benefit of something like that?
So in the Citizens Police Academy, or not academy, so Citizens Police. Yeah, I think it's called the Citizens Police Academy. That is one of the days is focused on that. I have to say, my experience, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to go into the simulation. I didn't need to. I don't want to, but it was offered, and I would suggest that having the civilian the community academy, whatever it's called, I would encourage that to be part of the mandatory training as well, because that's where you get a lot of information about the department that even as a fire and police commissioner, I haven't received as much as I received going through that academy. And I think it might be 10 months, but you go once a month or twice a month, something like that. So it's doable. It's in the evening, and we bring food.
I think the other
I don't think it should be a requirement though to go on the ride-alongs or to do that, just because I feel like individuals may be put to like sign up or maybe triggered. And I know that obviously like going into the commission and applying for the commission, you know, you're going to have like communications and like that relationship with law enforcement. However, you don't already want to be set up to the point where you're like already feeling like, wow, like I'm going to be doing this, you know, doing this training in hand, you know, and like it may potentially like negate like individuals who would want to be a part of the commission or would give an asset or be an asset to the commission, you know. So I mean, if you want to go on ride-alongs, that's great, but if you don't, like, I don't think that should be a requirement. And also I had another question. Can whoever suggested that making sure the board is competent and has the info needed, can you just further elaborate on that?
If I can interject for a second, Cami got kicked off of the video meeting.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. If we want to, I can continue taking notes. I was taking notes while you were talking, Anna.
Looks like
okay.
Anna, just to your point about, you know, people feeling uncomfortable, you're absolutely right. I would like to see kind of a choice of different opportunities though, of, you know, of different types of things that could be, here are different things that you can do in order to really understand. One of them could be ride-alongs. One of them could be what Lizzie had talked about. And I agree, you're right. It could be completely intimidating to be doing that. But I know that there might be some people, such as myself, who would like to be a part of that.
Yeah, and that's great. You know, that's definitely have that option. You know, I'm thinking about like maybe a youth who was formerly incarcerated and or like system impacted, and you know, they're not going to want to get on a police car, you know, willingly. And so, or maybe they will. I don't know. You know,
maybe they will. Maybe they'll be like, I'm a commissioner now.
And then I'm like, all right, great. You know, so just having that as an option.
Yeah, and I like that. I just wanted to make sure. I do believe that could serve a purpose for board members.
Yeah, but I think the conversation. Sorry, Commissioner, go ahead. Killebrew.
I just think a portfolio of options for them to have these trainings, because as I'm looking at this list, I'm like, this is a great list, but is this realistic? And I know that we're still brainstorming, but if there's a portfolio of options for trainings, I think that could be beneficial. But Commissioner Alonso.
Yeah, and I think we're having a conversation about requirements too. And so what I'm hearing is that, like, because a lot of these, if you read through these ordinances, like a lot of these are like required, right? So like Albuquerque requires at least 2 ride-alongs. And so I think it's worthy of discussion to take into consideration like what it is that we ultimately are recommending be required training. And what I'm hearing is that we should have sort of a couple of different options and maybe make a distinction between what is required and what is recommended. Because getting back to like, what are the core competencies of the board, and what training is the minimum amount of training necessary to make sure that the board is able to fulfill its function. And that's kind of, I think the details are important there, because we also want to keep in mind that like the board is independent, right? It's independent from the police department. The goal is oversight. And so I'm just curious in terms of like the training requirements, how we're fulfilling that tenet of, you know, NACOL's recommendations for good oversight.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you get to choose which ones you do, like how many trainings are you required to have, you know, and will that be paid in addition to like the general meetings or whatever it is, you know? So just reviewing all of that as well.
Can I jump in
I don't
quickly?
think,
I'm sorry. Can we share, can you make me the presenter again? Because this isn't actually my screen that's showing.
Oh, it is.
Not really well, I'm not really sure how that happened because I'm not sharing this right now. I'm not the presenter. So I can't.
Let me make you the presenter again.
Okay, thank you, Sam.
And while that's happening, I just want to read Kim's comment in the chat. She said, agreed, firearm training in particular may be a trigger for some, so if we include, it should be offered as an optional training.
And I guess I just want to say I see a big distinction between ride-alongs and firearms training.
Yeah, but and I hear you, Mary. And I think what the whole conversation is that it would probably be advantageous for us to have a pick list to choose from.
Right. So I was going to continue. Yeah, just I do believe that there's value in it if our idea is to have this body actually making judgments and assessments about police officers' actions, that there have been some direct frontline exposure or familiarity with that. I don't know how else to do it. I mean, we don't want people to have to go through a whole academy or something, but
this is where it's a little complicated having this all start at the same time, because normally you have like a few years hopscotch and, you know, folks get trained throughout. So there's some that have more, you know, yeah.
So if I might interject, I can say that I like all of the things that people are saying. I think it's really important to remember that you may have people on the commission who don't feel comfortable, you know, doing many of the things that you've talked about, whether it's firearm simulation. Some may not feel comfortable with ride-alongs. I myself opted out of doing the firearm simulation. It wasn't required, but it was part of the offered training. But I just to talk about the ride-alongs for a second, there are definitely some people who would not feel comfortable doing that. One of the reasons that so many cities have it is because if one of the purposes of the oversight entity is to kind of make a bridge between community and law enforcement, one of the things I found in the ride-alongs that I did is that it was an opportunity to sit and actually speak to an officer, and I never would have had the opportunity to really do that. But I say that realizing that that might not be comfortable for everyone, but maybe providing other opportunities that kind of might feel safer to some than being in a car with someone for an 8-hour or 12-hour shift. But those opportunities where not only can someone who's on the commission get to know law enforcement, but also that law enforcement could get to know somebody that's in the community. And actually, I think me getting in a car with someone kind of made them understand that, you know, I wasn't out to get them. I was out to have better law enforcement. So anyway, I just want to throw that out as one perspective, but I absolutely hear you about having other options for people who might not feel good about certain aspects of the training.
Thank you, Cami. This brings me up to just the idea, and there's already the infrastructure, and Lizzie Rodriguez is on the call, and so is Sergeant Hill. But there is the Voices program where there's, you know, officers that meet with community members, not in clothing, in their uniform, but in a more approachable manner, just have a conversation. And so I think there is infrastructure there that can be included in onboarding as an option for people if they want to have conversations with law enforcement.
Can we put specifically the Voices program, Cami, since it's specific to Santa Barbara?
Absolutely.
So yeah, you go ahead.
No, go ahead, Commissioner. Sorry.
I was gonna add, based on what was mentioned earlier, actually to your earlier point, I don't think that having ride-alongs is necessarily is necessarily threatening like the independence of that council, because I do think that there can be like, we could just view it as like a professional exchange and just kind of like understanding the other department and just kind of like a tour. But I just think, like was mentioned earlier, there should be other options because people learn differently and people have different personalities. Like I just don't think my personality I would really, would be beneficial to me. Like some people would like just more to read about like issues in the police department and learn from their training and just read it. And some people are more like prefer to be just more like, in the company of the police officers and kind of seeing as they go. So I think people just have different personalities and comfort levels that we should try to value and respect and maybe have those options. But I do think you can learn, I don't think you have to do a ride along to kind of understand what they do. I think you can learn in other ways as well.
And so, and I understand what you're saying. On the actual specifics, Cami, I'm sort of curious because there is such a diversity among the samples that you sent us. Some of them are very specific, right? It's like 100 friggin' bullet points on like, these are the requirements that you have to do. It's almost like the training, like the course outline is right there in the ordinance. And then other ones are just very broad. And so I'm wondering from your perspective on, in terms of best practices, is it better to have like, these are the requirements A, B, C, and D, or is it better to keep it more broad in terms of like, there will be training and the city will provide the training on police processes and that kind of stuff?
So I think so let me give the absolute wishy-washy answer first, is that it can work both ways. I think though, particularly given some of the things and comments that you've made tonight, I think something that talks about the general things that you wish to accomplish through training. I think you at the very beginning mentioned some specifics, but you didn't necessarily say who was going to provide the training or how many hours or how it was going to happen. And that a lot of times boards have kind of those specifics. They say that you need to have X number of hours on training that covers these topics, that kind of takes into account a realistic amount of hours for people who are volunteering, for the most part, volunteering their time. But also kind of make sure that you have individuals that will be well informed to do the work. I think there's a happy medium there. I have seen cities where they have so many requirements, it's nearly impossible to get everybody trained, because I can't remember who it was that mentioned before, is the problem of, so say you need 30 hours of training. Well, with people who already have at least one job or have kids or taking care of older parents or spouses, I mean, who knows? They've got other commitments. They may not be able to make that. So how are they going to make that up? And then if you have staggered terms when it all starts, you have people that will leave in a year, and then you've got to figure out how to get the new people trained. So it has to be realistic. And I think that some of those, I think making it too specific will make it really hard to make it in a way so that you can make it work for everybody. So I think talking about the things that you want to be trained on is great. Maybe less specific on the absolutely how it's going to happen. Just a suggestion.
Yeah. You know,
Mary and then Rich.
I do believe we have to be somewhat specific about some of the things, because I think one of the other things we're doing in this recommendation ultimately, or that the council would be doing in adopting an ordinance, is also trying to send a message about the credibility and the responsibility of this group, so that there is no doubt, you know, that this will be challenging. This will take time, and this also will have some assurance of at least somewhat of a foundation of training and exposure to the very issues that will be talked about. So I don't know how specific we have to get, and maybe we don't need to be specific about how specific we're going to be tonight, but you know, I know for myself it's important. So I don't think we need to have a number of hours. Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody, or Rich, you had your hand up
Yeah,
earlier.
I have a couple of questions on this. I'm feeling overwhelmed by looking at this training, and I think what I'm thinking about is we're essentially creating somewhat of a jury, right? That is reviewing these cases and understanding like what common sense would be in a lot of these interactions. And like, I think the like wise and prudent, like, I don't know if we necessarily are looking for experts on this. I think that's what the investigators are for, or the auditor monitors are for. I think that they're going to be reviewing the case and kind of deciding like if something was wrong or there was more info needed or what have you. And so I didn't get a chance to look over everything that you sent, Cami, but I'm curious, is there an ability that like the cases could vary pretty widely, right? Like we could have like a case with violence, or we could have a case that has sexual harassment, or a case that has attitudinal complaints or what have you. Like, could we make training specific around like cases, if that's possible? Like, because I think that people are going to need quite a bit more training for like some kind of use of force or violence versus, I don't know, like a more attitudinal complaint. Do you see what I'm trying to say? I don't know how to say that exactly.
That's possible. I mean, that you can have training around the issues that are specific to a case. I can give you an example of how one city that in the examples that I gave you, they're required to do 20 hours of training with law enforcement, the local police department. But one of the interesting parts of it is that they were able to choose their training topics. So instead of getting, you know, everything from A to Z, they were able to they wanted to know, how are officers trained on traffic stops? So that or how are officers trained on use of force? So that when you've got a complaint, because you're right, there are definitely complaints that you will see more than others. And, you know, the attitudinal, the rude and discourteous complaints, and learning what officers are taught in the academy, what the general orders are for those specific complaints. So I hear what you're saying, and I think it's a great idea, but maybe you can say, these are the most common kinds of complaints, and we definitely are going to need some training on those, so that when you get the case, you're ready to review it and kind of know. I also always had the general orders with me when I reviewed a case, so that I could, because there's no way I could have ever remembered all of them. I don't know how anybody can. But then I could look up the general orders that pertain to the particular complaint, so that I had some idea of. And so that's not something that I could have necessarily learned all of that in academy, but I had access to it. And my reading of it brought in that common sense kind of piece to it. I don't know if that helps or not, but.
Yeah, I just want to, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, fellow commissioners, but I don't want us to like throw out everything. I feel like we're trying to give everything done, and I just don't know if like I mean, again, I'm not as familiar with the current caseload of what they would be reviewing for Santa Barbara right now, but I don't know if we would need all of this for what's here. Now, I know that we want to create a system that has flex as things come up, but I don't know if we need to have such long requirements from people that, and so much training that it would stop us from filling this commission, or even I don't want us to, I don't know the expression, there's like a metaphor of like, don't use a hammer when you need a screwdriver or something. Like we don't want to like throw everything out and just expect that that's the one thing that they can do. That's just my 2 cents, but correct me if you feel differently.
Rich, if I may, I just wanted to say I appreciate that. You know, it is a tremendous amount, but I do recognize that we're kind of at the very beginning of this very process. So it would probably be prudent for us as a team to talk about everything that might be a part of it, and then we can pare it down to what we find is the most important pieces. I don't think any of us believe that all of this should be a part of it, but I do believe that we need to figure out, you know, maybe we are missing something. Maybe there's something really important right now we're not seeing. So we really do need to have this conversation right now. But I do agree, we don't want to overwhelm people so they won't do it. I mean, I know as a mother of 4, I couldn't take this position on right now based on what it's looking like. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Just to add on to that too, because I think similarly, right? I feel like we're in the brainstorming phase, so that's why so much is getting added to this list. And when we do go back to refine this, I don't know if it needs to be written on this list, but I feel like, you know, just like every other slide that we've fleshed out with ideas, that, you know, when we return to kind of the original values and intent of the oversight body, like that should inform all of our decisions, right? Like we started last time talking about sort of the values of diversity and a safe space for the people in the commission. And then when we moved on to composition of the commission, we lost sight of some of those values, and we were suggesting things that weren't in alignment with those values. So I think for me also, as we're going through these slides, like I'm starting to try to process some of these lists with that kind of stuff in mind too, that like we're going to need to refine these, absolutely. And I think mandatory versus optional, there's lots of ways we could organize that, but you know, I feel like the training and every other kind of section should go back to those original values in some sense. And I also I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want to revisit, because Anna had a question earlier about like what folks meant when they said competent. And I thought that was a really interesting question, even though we didn't get to go down that road, but I don't know if we want to revisit that.
I think part of the part of the competency issue, like as far as, you know, the requirements, some of them I think are like just you know, non-negotiable, as far as, you know, just having like cultural awareness. Like those things are just like part of the job. I think there's other, I think Rich had a good point as far as like the caseloads and what comes up. I think some of those factors can be learned as you go. You might have a briefing on like a civil liberty issue. You get a briefing on like a Fifth Amendment issue. Whatever comes up, you can actually like as you go. But like you need people on there who have certain minimum competencies that are non-negotiable. Like they have to have certain values that we talked about before. So I think we can break those down, and then some can be like learned as you go, as Rich pointed out, like on a case-by-case basis for content knowledge. But some of those trainings are just like, you just need to do that to be working on this kind of commission. Yeah.
I think I would, you know, I would want to just be cautious of using the word competent just kind of as an ableist term. We do want to include, you know, individuals with disabilities and mental health disorders, you know, or people who know about that. I just want to make sure that we write that in a way that doesn't exclude people in a certain way.
And then also, like, if we're expecting folks to be trained prior to trying to join the commission, we should give enough time so that they are able to fulfill those requirements if they don't have those requirements met prior to like wanting to like be a part of the commission, you know? So just giving everybody the opportunity, because somebody who has worked with law enforcement may have like a lot of these already like check marked, you know, but somebody who hasn't or who is new to this, like giving them that same opportunity. So it's equitable all around.
I think one of the examples, Cami, Albuquerque, and they mention on qualifications, you know, something like a commitment to transparency and impartial decision making, a demonstrated ability to engage in mature impartial decision making. So things that you know, kind of demand some kind of integrity, but aren't necessarily specific to a particular you know, educational achievement. I mean, I like theirs in general, the language there, but.
So I was under the assumption that these trainings would take place, it would be kind of on the job training. So not a requirement to be appointed, but a requirement to stay, you know, to be part of the commission. We're expected to, you know, show up to a certain amount of meetings and, you know, have some sort of some training. So am I?
That's what I'm assuming.
That's what I thought, but I mean, from the way that it's saying, if they're required to have certain like points before, then we need to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to be able to fulfill that if we need to.
Cami, I have a question for you. Are there boards, oversight bodies out there that define the goals of the training and then let the board itself design the training program?
Yeah, you can say, there are those that say that they want the board to be trained on whether it's cultural competencies, racial equity, policies and procedures. And then the board, once it has been formed, then can say, okay, so these are the things. It kind of goes back to what I was talking about before, that they can say, yes, I think it's really important, given the things that we've seen in our community, that we are trained on traffic stops, or that we have training on bias-based policing or implicit bias. So yes, I guess it's the easy answer to your question.
Yeah, because I'm wondering what the best way to make sure that we don't get too specific, that we set the future oversight body up for not failure, but set them back, where if there's a new training or a new approach or some new piece of information that can be helpful to the oversight body, that we're not making it so specific that in order to get that information or that training, they would have to do it in addition to the base training, if that makes sense.
Kind of going
sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
No worries. Kind of going along with that, I think that'd be wonderful if we gave this board the power to either take a vote or also ask for recommendations from the community, what trainings they should do. So maybe they'll get there and they'll say, you know, they'll have the basics of like ethics training, Brown Act, all of the above. But then they could also ask again, like to the community, and say, you know, do you recommend that we do any trainings, or does anybody know of anything new that we should be looking into? So I think, like you said, Gabe, that flexibility should be given to them, I think, to allow them to, you know, go after new trainings, or if they find that there are certain problems that keep coming up again and again that they need to know more about. I think that would also be great, that they have the power to just choose that for themselves.
That's a really good point. And also to Gabe's point and yours, Serafina, I think sometimes making the training a yearly requirement allows you to bring in those new, the new topics that are important to the community, or new training modules that didn't exist the first time around. Like, I think that those are great things to think about.
And so maybe like some kind of language about, or mechanism in the ordinance language about like continual review of the training program.
Okay.
I also am curious because we did think that I think in the current model that we're exploring, that we're pushing to hire somebody that's the auditor monitor focused person that is not chairing the committee, but is kind of helping alongside. What if we empower them to make decisions on trainings per cases that are coming up, so that there's ongoing trainings that they're responsible for about getting that information out to the commission? I just think that they're probably going to be an expert, right?
I like that idea, and of having the auditor monitor involved somehow in the training or establishment of the training, or if, I mean, they're really going to be the ones that are going to see long-term trends as they look over the data and look over the investigations that are, and the complaints that are coming through, that they're going to see trends and maybe be able to provide some insight into what could be useful for the board, to Rich's point.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Okay, we're about 7 minutes away from the 2-hour mark, and so I just wanted to kind of check in with everyone and see how you're feeling.
Kim Johnson just asked, is that right? She said we should consider whether or not we allow people to use past trainings to bypass or opt out of this training. So for instance, if someone has recently completed racial training, can they opt out? Or do they have to complete this particular approved training, quote unquote, program?
Maybe if we call some things not training, I mean, or just, these are exercises with the group. I don't know.
Onboarding exercises, like.
Yeah, something. I mean, I think part of it also are opportunities, you know, to build relationships among the board members and get to know each other. You know, I don't envision any of these as just like going off to school or class somewhere. You know, I think you can bring people in, professionals. I would not like to see us eliminate too much, I guess, or dilute things too much.
I think that's a really interesting point. And to that, I think to me, the point of coming up with training that everyone can share is exactly that, right? Giving people a shared language and some shared understanding that they can use to do the work. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I totally agree that if there is, I mean, I do think there are certain things that could be opted out of perhaps and be made optional. But if a recommendation for training is to give the oversight body that, right, give them the opportunity to learn together and have that be part of the experience, I think is really important.
And then also with the trainings, it would be good to have like community partners and possibly like lead those trainings. So that way it builds that collaboration and empowerment. And also, I don't want to go too far back, but how we were talking about like having similar trainings that law enforcement has had, and that would also give us that opportunity to be able to see what needs to be changed within their training. And so also like creating that change, like that should be like, there should be more like to that training or whatever, whatever is needed at that moment. And then also, I know that we had talked about like possibly like having youth in the board. I don't know if some of the trainings will require like an age requirement, like by law, or, again, that makes it so that's like, it's good that we have like different options, right? So I'm just.
There's a note from Kim. We should consider whether or not we allow people to use past training to bypass or opt out of this training so far. For instance, if someone has recently completed racial training, can they opt out, or do they have to complete this particular approved training program?
We just talked about that.
So I'm wondering about like NACOL. I mentioned before it'd be great to do, to have that be part of the training, and then there's a certification program as well. And I'm wondering if that, when we think about like the chair, somebody who's going to have maybe more responsibility on that commission, that maybe that might be an option, and then of course have it, paid for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anything additional that someone would like to add? Okay. Well, Gabe, we're at the 2-hour mark, and so I want to be very respectful of our commitment to having a shorter meeting. So if it pleases the commission, I could close things out of this right now, and then we can move on at our next meeting to this last piece.
Yeah, and Cami, I know you discussed based on how far we got, you would give the commission specific topics that we would discuss and have a goal for next meeting. I don't know if you wanted to discuss that.
So let me discuss a little bit of that. So next time we absolutely will be discussing powers and duties. I think that will be a fairly a robust conversation. We spent an hour on training today, so I expect at least an hour on power and duties at our next meeting. And if that's all we get to, that is okay. And I will, after this meeting, what I will be sending to you is some, I will update the shared document that's kind of the working document that we're keeping all of these brainstorming ideas on, that will eventually turn into the rough draft as we narrow things down. I will send you out probably a few more examples of training, and then I probably will also send you out some things and highlight some areas of powers and duties, just to kind of get you starting to think about things that you feel would be important to include in the next conversation. And then if we have time, I think it was Rachel that you mentioned about in the conversation about the things that we talked, the values that we talked about, and kind of trying to keep them as in mind as we brainstorm the other sections. That really kind of hit a note with me. And I had purpose is always such a hard thing to finalize, but I do feel like that with your comment that you made, that purpose would be probably an excellent place for us to start, to narrow things down, because and we can rename that to purpose and values if that makes sense. That then can guide you as you begin to narrow down the other 3 sections. And so that will be the first place that we start. If we have time at the next meeting, then we can start that. And if not, that will be the very next thing that we work on, because I believe that will also help guide the conversation when we begin talking about the auditor monitor piece.
Yeah, just real quick, Cami, what I noticed in the examples you sent is that most of them had in their purpose really were like value statements, you know, build better relationships between law enforcement and the community. So they were kind of the more traditional, you know, mission statements or goals. And so we probably, and I was thinking that, you know, we probably do need to take a better look at that.
And then I also like a comment. So I know for the community who's watching or who will see the recording later on, do you recommend for them to also like have input for the next commission, the next meeting, like about powers and duties, and also the information that you shared with us? I know it's not on the website, so I wasn't sure if that was information that I could share out. And if I can, is that okay? Just so I can share it out, or?
Yeah, so nothing's secret. I don't think that it shouldn't be shared. One of the reasons that I did not give the working document to Sam to post on the website is because I didn't want anybody to think that it was final, since it was a list of brainstorming ideas. I didn't want anybody to see anything on that list and then automatically assume that was something that was going to be part of the final document, because you're definitely not at that point yet where that's your final list. But that's up to you guys to decide. There's also, as you notice, I put the disclaimer at the top of the list in case it was shared that this was not the final document. So, but I don't think anything that you do should be kept.
Yeah, I'm speaking more, I understand that. I'm speaking more like specifically like the breakdowns and the other information. But
so
okay, that's great.
Is that something Attorney Doimus can answer? Is that in violation of Brown Act if we share information that comes to us via email but it's not posted on the website?
Yes, Commissioner Chair Escobedo, Commissioner Rodriguez, we don't want to be sharing emails like that in terms of that, because that's what's referred to as kind of a spoke or wheel type of issue with the Brown Act in terms of emailing each other. This should be all done out in the open and then shared on the website on that. That's why we do have the one thing where we've done where we prevent concerns on this is these small working groups that do not have a quorum that are specifically focused on a certain subject matter or task. That's if we keep it in that limited realm, we're okay as a commission. But we start doing it larger like that, we do run into problems.
John, if I could ask a follow-up, John,
Sure, absolutely.
What about an uneditable working document where if Cami were to summarize the information that we have here on the slide, because here on the slide these are just notes, but to summarize them in a document we wouldn't be able to edit, but she would share it with us in like a Google Doc that we can't possibly edit. It's a working document. It's not the final. It's just the brainstorming. Is that okay?
And what would we do once we get the Google Doc and document? What would we do with it? Just review it?
It's just to share with us. Yeah, we just review it.
It could be reviewed, no comment, but then that doc should be transparent to the public too, just to be safe after that.
Okay, so then we would make maybe a PDF and post it on the website.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I can create, each time I make that document, I could create it with working document as of, so that people know that this is what you did as of 9/22 versus October 13th. And so they can kind of see the progress as well. So if that's what the commission would like, I can absolutely do that.
As long as it's
That's
titled,
perfect.
it is a working document. It's not, we haven't voted on anything yet. There shouldn't be any misunderstanding in the community.
And Anna, I do remember that I had talked to you about that one slide from the last meeting that talked about the review focus model, about getting that so it could be on the website and translated. So I'll make sure that that happens.
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, so we can open up public comment. Sam, if we have anyone out there that would like to make public comment on this item.
Give me 1 second, Chair. Okay, if there's anybody in the public that would like to speak on the discussion of the review board authorities and procedures, please raise your hand. I see one hand raised. Give me 1 second. Chelsea Lancaster, I've unmuted you, so feel free to click unmute and go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Just wanted to bring back the issue and appreciate Rachel and Anna and Christian, who all sort of named that. Again, part of the intention for the community and the organizers that pushed for this effort was to make sure that it was as inclusive as possible, and it centered those most impacted and the folks closest to the pain. So I really want to make sure when you all are thinking about what this is going to look like and what training looks like and what wisdom looks like, that we're really honoring folks' lived experiences, that we're honoring that sitting in a police car is not a safe experience for a lot of people. And that, yeah, I just really wanted to make sure that we're keeping that at the forefront. I'm glad that y'all are going to have a conversation about sort of your guiding values. And again, I would like to always keep community at the forefront and remember that a big part of this is also about transparency. So I appreciate you all making some of the documents available for other folks to view, because there are a lot of people in the community that are, again, following this process, are invested, deeply invested, and deeply invested in real community safety. And, you know, just to be perfectly honest, we don't want this to become a PR stunt for the Santa Barbara Police Department. This is about protecting the people. This is about protecting our youth and our community, the folks that have been over-policed. So just wanted to name all of that. And again, appreciate the labor. I know it's a lot. And have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. If I can, Sam, and I think Anna brought this up, is for those that have feedback on a lot of the topics that we're discussing, it would be helpful to have it ahead of the meeting. So if you can email the CFC at santabarbaraca.gov if you have suggestions on what we're working on, we'd really appreciate it.
I see no further hands raised. Chair Escobedo.
Thanks, Sam. So if we can get a motion to continue this item to our next meeting, which is a ways away, thankfully, October 13th.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Mary, second by Rachel, to continue this meeting to October 13th. Any discussion? I'm not seeing any. So Sam, if we can get a voice vote.
Sure. There's been a motion by Commissioner O'Gorman, seconded by Commissioner Rachel Johnson, to continue the discussion on review board authorities and procedures to the next meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Against, motion passes.
All right. And then we are going to move on to the next item, the discussion on auditor monitor authorities and procedures, which I'm going to ask for a motion to table this if we can until some future date.
I motion to table this. Auditor and monitor authorities and procedures to some future date.
Louisa motions, any second?
I second it.
All right, Serafina seconds. Any discussion? Guessing not seeing any. Sam, if you could do a voice vote, please.
Sure. There's been a motion by Commissioner Louisa Wood, seconded by Commissioner Serafina Chavez to continue item 7, the discussion on auditor and monitor authorities and procedures into a future meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Motion passes.
All right, and so now we just have our last item, future business. You heard from Cammie what we will be going over for our next meeting related to the review board. I imagine that we're also going to have an update again from the marketing and education work group. And I think that will be pretty much it for that meeting. But I know Anna wanted to share our plan, hopefully for the, can you remind me the date? October 20, our second meeting in October.
Yeah, so for the second meeting of October, I just wanted for new business, reach out to Healing Justice, Ethnic Studies Now, and Freedom for Youth, a couple of local organizations that have worked extremely closely with their community partners. And so that way we can have at least minimum an hour for them to be able to present. If more time is needed or more opportunities for community involvement is needed, then we can just move forward from there. But I think this will be a really good start for us to be able to engage with the community, especially now that we started brainstorming, and be able to hear what their voice has to say about all this as well.
Yeah, Rachel?
Oh yeah, not a comment on that. I'm fully supportive of that. But can we also just make sure is on the first meeting in October, should the scope of work for the survey, because by then we should hopefully have our second, so we can actually take action on that. So we can fulfill our promise to the education and outreach group. Have them their survey.
Thank you for reminding me about that.
Maybe if I could make a suggestion, Gabe, maybe to have like updates from committees, you know, to just may or may not need an action on, but.
That sounds great.
And then I just wanted to mention 2 meetings that are happening next week, you know, that may be of interest to the group. One, it's the Racial and Ethnic Equity and Inclusion Committee of the Realignment Board of the county, and Ethan Bertrand chairs this. That's on Monday. It's Zoom at 4 o'clock. So I have the link and I can forward to anybody who's interested. And one of the things, they'll be you know, talking about doing a survey actually to better understand one's experience with the criminal justice system and how it's influenced by race or ethnic identity. And so they will present the draft surveys that have been created. So, and I know they've been working on that for a long time. And then on the 24th, there is a virtual listening forum on juvenile justice realignment. In a nutshell, the state of California is now doing with juveniles what they did with adults a few years ago, and that is putting everything back in the county. So there's no more youth authority, juvenile justice department. What that means is that the county needs to develop its own system or expand on its system. So community input is requested on the future design of our new long-term program at the Juvenile Justice Center. All are welcome to participate and share ideas on how to best support youth and the goal of reducing recidivism. So there's a Zoom link for that as well. So there's a lot happening.
Mary, can you, would it be possible to send those to Sam, and then Sam could send that out to the group? That would be great.
Yeah, I'll do that tomorrow. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Mhm.
And we have a comment from Kim Johnson about the suggestion about organizations presenting. What exactly will they be presenting on? And should we extend an invitation to a number of organizations across the spectrum rather than just specific orgs? Just want to make sure all members of the community have an equal opportunity to comment. So
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, yeah, definitely. This would be the first groups that we reached out to. So, and then of course, like if there's other groups, other community members who would like to present, my goal or our goal should be to have as many as we can. So that way there's like that wide range of community members also feeling empowered with this process. So this is just the beginning stage, because I know that we have been talking about this since we began the commission. So it's just like, let's launch it, let's do it.
And if I can, because I know John might come on soon. So we can't get too much more into any one topic, but Anna and I will work together to figure out what's the best way for orgs, if they're interested, to reach out to us, and we can connect them with opportunities to get time with the commission.
So I wonder if on the agenda, like on the standing agenda, instead of having to agendize subcommittee reports, I wonder if we could just add a line in the agenda saying subcommittee reports. So then if we're ready, we can present. If we don't have anything to present, you know, that way we don't have to do the whole agendizing process.
That's a good idea. We can definitely do that. We'll start with next meeting. We'll definitely have that. Thanks, Lizzie. Other future business from the commission, other than rest, hopefully? All right. So with that, we can end this item, and that will be the last item for tonight. Oh, Dan, did you want to open up public comment that way? Oh.
Sure. If you'd like me to open up public comment?
Yeah, if there's anyone.
For future business. If there's anybody that wishes to add, make a comment on future business item, please raise your hand or click on the hand raise icon. Give me 1 second. Chelsea, I'm not sure if you're raising your hand for this item. Let's check. Chelsea Lancaster, if you'd like to speak on the future business of the commission, please unmute yourself. Does not appear so, so we will close the public comment portion is closed.
Okay, thank you, Sam. All right, we'll close that item. That is our meeting for tonight. Thank you all. We went a little bit over, but we stayed pretty close. I'm proud of us. Good job, everyone. I hope you all get some rest over the next couple of weeks. Let us know if you need anything.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Good night, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you, Kennedy. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Kami.
And John Dywes and everyone else.
Take care.